the Mina Show featuring Lenny, only NFL podcast. One of the host's favorite matchups of the weekend is Baltimore, Pittsburgh, because abbreviated, it's Pitbull. That's Lenny. I mean, it's really ball pit, but whatever. That generous laugh you heard is from the great Jourdan Rodrigue, the NFC West, my NFC West queen is what I texted her.
I was so honored. I sent you the 1-800 contacts. My brand.
I mean, well, I knew we would have a good NFC West game. I did not know. Well, I didn't know actually. The Niners had to win, obviously. Did not know we'd have 3 divisional titles on the line, which is amazing. Honestly, what a gift. When the Browns beat, I don't care. I'm not like I picked the Steelers like most people to beat the Browns, but what a gift to give us a meaningful Week 18 Sunday night game, 2 meaningful Saturday games, one of which could be undone by another NFC South hate match, which is just great and so NFC South like. So today this is a very narrowed podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even going to pick because it's just not possible to pick. I mean, it's Week 18. Half these games don't mean anything. We're going to talk about 3 games. We're going to talk about Panthers Bucks. We're going to talk about Seahawks Niners, and then we're going to talk about Ravens Steelers on Sunday night. And then instead of talking about the other largely meaningless games, because it is New Year's, this comes out on New Year's Day, we're going to do New Year's resolutions for the worst teams in the NFL, the under 500 teams, the neglected teams that rarely get spoken about in great detail on this show. I'm looking at you, Raiders fans, Jets fans, Titans, all of it. So we're going to run through some of them and pick like an off-season resolution for each of them. So if you root for a bad team, you have incentive to keep listening. Jourdan, let me ask you, of the 3 games, is there one that you're most excited for?
You set me up. I mean, you know the answer to this.
Yes,
you already know the answer to this.
It's Panthers Bucks, right?
Yes. Well, of course, sure. But of course it is Seattle, San Francisco. I think when we looked at the schedule and we saw how closely those 2 teams played each other, it's wild that they bookend so dramatically this.
I know. Yeah.
And we saw, and we were like, oh, it can't possibly come down to Week 18, right? Guess what? It is. And not just for these 2 teams, but the implications across the entire NFC are striking. And I cannot wait for this game, Mina. This is the Coach of the Year Bowl, in my opinion.
Ooh, yeah, I think that's fair. Let's get into that after that game. That is a fun one because I do an awards pod, and I too think there's a lot of good cases for Coach of the Year this year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Bears, the Patriots, and the Jags are the 3 teams because they fit that typical prototype of the turnaround. But I think the Niners and the Seahawks both have really excellent cases. All right, let's go in chronological order and start with the NFC South game.
Yes.
2 teams limping towards the finish line. Oh wait, let me pull up. I forgot who. Okay, so it should be noted that the champion of the NFC South may not necessarily be decided.
Because of course, why would it?
It's what a ridiculous. I posted on Blue Sky. I asked because so let me make sure I have the details right. If the Bucks win, this is from our friend Greg Rosenthal. Although, by the way, Jourdan Rodrigue is on the podcast. You guys should check it out. NFL Daily is excellent. She also covers the NFL in amazing fashion for The Athletic. Lots of great stories as of late. Guys, go check it out.
We didn't even care. We just wanted to start talking about Week 18. It's like, don't worry about that. That's nothing. Let's talk about Week 18.
Okay. So if the Panthers win, the Panthers win.
Yeah.
If the Bucks win, it ain't over. If the Bucks win on Saturday, then Saints Falcons on Sunday decides the champ. If the Saints win, the Bucks win. If the Falcons win, the Panthers win because of a 3-way 8-9 tie. Would be the perfect way to decide the division.
Mm-hmm.
I put out a question because Saints, it's really interesting because Saints and Falcons fans despise each other, maybe more than any 2 fan bases in the NFL. I absolutely love their just pure hatred. But I didn't know if they cared about the other team. So I put out a call to Saints and Falcons fans asking them, what do you want to happen? But all of them, to a man, most of them said, we don't really care. We just want to beat the other. So they're going to try, which is great, I think. And also, I guess we could have previewed that game. I really genuinely believe either team could win that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. They're both playing at the peak of their powers without it ever actually mattering, which I love. That's so Sisyphean in the best way that describes the NFC South.
Totally. And they're perfect. I think, like, to your point, like the Saints and the Saints certainly feel like they're kind of headed in the right direction finally. Mm-hmm. The Falcons are coming off of a shocking win over the Rams. Meanwhile, the Panthers and the Bucs are coming off of humiliation. So, like, I don't even know. If you ask me to power rank these teams right now, I don't know which two teams I'd put on top, Jourdan. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if the NFC South winner, I think there's a good chance the NFC South winner might not actually be the best team in the NFC South.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, especially Patrick Claybon on NFL Daily is always in my head when I use the word momentum because he doesn't believe in it. I do believe in it. And I feel like the momentum has completely flipped. The Panthers, I wouldn't call anything they've done this season to have momentum because they've been this wild, amazing, awesome berserker team that just does incredibly cool stuff. And it's so fun. But the Saints are ascending at the right time or the wrong time, I guess, depending on who you ask. And the Falcons are playing their best football when it doesn't matter. And I think those two are the best two teams in the NFC. I think the Panthers, though, do have a ceiling of being the best team in the NFC South. The other two are playing more consistently like it, but I think the Panthers have the highest ceiling based on what we've seen the last few weeks. The Bucs should, on paper, be the best team in the NFC South, but they certainly have been playing some depressing football. They have not looked like it in weeks.
The Bucs trajectory is a mountain, visually up then down, and the Panthers is a Scooby-Doo wiggly line that goes in every direction, which makes it hard to project any. I have a running joke, which is the first rule of picking Panthers games is don't pick Panthers games because I truly don't know. The Bucs implosion has been incredibly depressing for Bucs fans. Mm-hmm. So because in some ways, like the Panthers losing to the Seahawks is less embarrassing than the Bucs losing to Quinn Ewers and the Miami Dolphins, which is what happened last weekend. We'll get to Bryce Young really struggled, and we'll get to that side of the ball. But let's start with the Bucs offense versus the Panthers defense because that's where I think the bigger implosion has happened because Baker's gotten guys back, right? Like he was playing his best football when Mike Evans wasn't in the lineup, when they were missing Bucky Irving. And everybody expected as those guys to return for the offense to get better, and it just hasn't. What would you say watching Baker, whether it's this last week or the last few weeks, is the biggest, and not just Baker, the Bucs offense, your eye is the biggest problem with this Bucs offense, and do you think it can be fixed against Carolina?
The problem actually is that it's not just any one problem from week to week. He's dealt with some drops, even guys that he's leaned on. Emeka Egbuka has taken a step back at times. Still, we see the potential, but Chris Godwin, it just is clear. It's just going to take him into next year to really feel like himself again. Even last week, there was a really uncharacteristic like misconnection between Mike Evans and Baker. But then a couple of weeks ago, there also was, and I believe that was against the Panthers that led to an interception. And it's just not, it's not cohesive. It doesn't feel like things are clicking and staying efficient. And then when they start to get a little bit of efficiency down to down, then Baker's making a decision. He's trying to push the ball, taking a risk maybe where he doesn't need to. And he's also clearly in pain. And I know there's a lot of debate and argument about like how much is his injury really affecting him. But I see it in the way he's trying to get torque on some of his throws. I see it in the way he's even sitting on the bench looking like he's just been haunted by 1,000 Etsy witches. And like, it's crazy to me we will probably never know to the actual extent to which he's injured. And it's obviously not on his throwing side, but the entire body biomechanically goes into making these throws. And he's clearly pushing through something. So I think it's a confluence of things. It's Tristan Wirfs being in and out of the lineup. It is their run game that is just has so much potential, but is not the way that we expected it to. That's the problem. It's like that meme of the guy who's like slapping a piece of duct tape on the tub and is like, fixed it. But then another leak is springing up somewhere else. And it's like whack-a-mole for them right now.
the run game to me is like the biggest difference from last year, right? Because the Bucks offense last year, for those who've forgotten, was like a top 5 unit.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the reason why people were so enthusiastic about the Bucks this season. And then the injuries hit. And even in the first half of the year, they had a lot of really like explosive plays and like Baker kind of got away with some stuff.
Yeah.
But they couldn't run the ball, and now Bucky Irving's back, and they still can't run the ball. And I think it's a combination of things. Irving not quite being himself to my eye, the offensive line injuries that you alluded to. Tristan Wirfs is back at practice, so I think he's going to play in this
Great.
one. But it has put Baker. I think what was kind of underestimated last year is he was in such a great quarterbacking environment because they were the screens were so good, the run game was so efficient. He wasn't asked to carry this offense, and I think we've seen this year is like asking him to carry the offense is actually not a great idea, and it leads to some bad habits and poor decisions. And I think that was the case against Miami, but it's been the case for a while. Just forcing the ball downfield, and on those deep throws. So weeks 1 through 7. He had 0.89 EPA per play on deep passes, which is insane. Since week 8, it's been negative 0.2, which is 29th league wide. And he's throwing interceptions. He's had misses. So I bring this up. Bucks fans, I know you're listening. You're like, geez, we get it. Okay, we suck. Great news. Don't throw it deep on Carolina. So the Carolina defense has a fascinating split, which is they are amazing against deep passes. They're 6th in EPA per play.
And a lot of that's interceptions too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mike Jackson and JC Horn, their 2 cornerbacks, are both ball hawking corners. You saw that against Seattle. Jackson, who's been really good this year, had a great interception, but we know about JC Horn. But they're 30th in EPA per play versus short passes. Baker doesn't need to be a hero in this game. He just needs to be a distributor. But easier said than done sometimes.
Yeah, it's a great point because you want to attack the middle and short middle areas. You mentioned the screen game. Man, I wish they had last year's screen game because they could screen these linebackers in Carolina to death. I mean, that's the thing. I think Christian Rozeboom has had a couple of really good games this year. Very familiar with Christian Rozeboom.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, Christian Rozeboom.
And but their linebackers and their safeties too are just not, they're just very able to be schemed out of things. And so I think that's where Ejiro Evero has done a really great job because he's almost daring these quarterbacks to throw deep on them with the way that he's sort of adjusted his scheme. Normally the way that Ejiro Evero has played his system straight out of this hybrid between like Wade Phillips and Vic Fangio is he wants to put a cap coming down over the top of an offense, but he's still playing schematically the way he wants to, but he's doing some different things in terms of baiting quarterbacks to try to take those deep explosives, making them look like they're there and trusting in the actual good players on his defense to make those plays, and inclusive to Derek Brown being able to affect the throw up front. So I think it's really a really smart adjustment. It's very hard to do. It takes a lot of buy-in from your players and from your coaches, and you have to convince the head coach that yes, we should dare explosives. Yeah, that seems smart, except that coaches never want to do that, obviously. So I admire that a lot. But yes, attacking the short middle. And I think Baker can do it with his legs. I mentioned the injury, and yeah, he's clearly in a lot of pain, but they don't really have a screen game. So I would like to see him, that seems like it's working well to me. So I would really like to see him attack the flats with his legs, which he did a little bit last week. That's where they did have some success. And yes, it is going to be excruciating probably to do it, but he is doing it, and it's still Baker. And we know that if he can, he will. So you want to make sure you basically limit his worst tendencies while also saying, if you want to be brave, man, go do it this way.
I think it's everything we're talking about, like the short passes, the scrambles. If Baker, and famous last words, watch him connect on a bunch of deep passes. He tried, by the way, the teams just played, right? Which is always interesting when they have the quick turnaround. And he was very efficient throwing the ball on short passes the last time they played, but on passes over 10 yards, he was 2 for 6 last time. So if he comes into this with a very point guardy stat line, I think they win. I really do, because I do think the Tampa Bay pass catchers have an advantage. And I think they should be able to move the ball on Carolina. Carolina pass rush still isn't that great. Like, Derek Brown's awesome. Nick Scorton's flashed a little bit,
Mhm.
but neither is Tampa. We'll get to that side, but they're not. I don't think. I don't think that they can win in pass defense unless Baker forces it. Is how I
Mhm.
would put. I think if I think they can stop them on the ground, quite possibly. But to me, there's enough weaknesses in this Carolina defense for Baker and the Josh Grizzard to attack. Just don't force it, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Last week was really rough. We talked about it earlier this week, but like going back, he should have had more interceptions than he did.
Mhm.
And these are two pretty evenly matched teams, and it might come down to just whichever quarterback doesn't turn it over.
It's ironic a little bit because they should want Baker for this game to play the way that the Panthers are trying to get Bryce Young to consistently play in
Yeah,
terms of the point guard stuff and not making low probability throws and just not making mistakes inclusive to when you're in pressure, flushing the pocket when you see an opportunity to do it, the ability to throw on the run. Again, everything looks kind of painful for Baker right now, but still can do it. So it's the irony of that a little bit. And I think the Panthers have a better screen game, actually, especially with the running backs. So that might be an advantage too when we flip over to the other side of the ball. But I do think that there's a little irony there because you don't want Baker to go be the franchise hero quarterback in this one. You want him to be a part to whole quarterback. And also, ironically, that is what tends to win against this defensive system is death by 1,000 paper cuts, accepting the paper cuts,
yeah.
accepting that you will just have to make smart, efficient plays the entire game.
I love your point about Ejiro Evero and the Rams, the DNA of that offense or defense, pardon me, schematically that we do see in Carolina. I think he's done a really good job. I mean,
Yeah, me
they
too.
still need players up front. The front seven is still, I mentioned outside of Brown, really, and Scorton, but you know, given that, I think you have seen some decent improvement, and obviously they've taken away the football. Tampa, I mean, the defense. It's funny because I said the offense was the bigger collapse, but the defense has been really rough.
Yeah.
Um, well, let's start with Carolina. So we're coming off of I talked about Baker against Miami. Good lord, the Seahawks, what they did to Bryce Young was not fun to watch, I'm sure, for Panthers fans. I mean, it was really brutal, Jourdan. They just destroyed him.
It's the Seahawks have been doing this to people. It just looked worse, I think, this time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Like, yeah. And it's when a team can stay in its A+ plan the entire game. And yes, in the case of the Seahawks, the way that they got him to not trust what he was seeing so early on in the game. And then this becomes a big, I think, hinge point. One of the issues that came up in this game as well, which is something they've dealt with, the Carolina Panthers have dealt with all season, and that Bryce Young has at times struggled with. At times he has um, lifted the floor of, but his receiving group, they need more out of his receiving group. And when you have Tetairoa McMillan, who shows us such high potential, but then you also see games like the first half of this last time Tampa Bay and Carolina matched up, which
Yeah.
he was getting bullied around by these corners. Todd Bowles was playing more press man than he normally does, and basically saying we don't think any of these other receivers can make plays on us, and we can be more physical even than your best receiver. And that's what they were doing. And it wasn't until Tet McMillan muscled down a catch that was very, very low probability and really, really insanely difficult level catch to make that everybody else came to life too through the second half. And then Bryce Young fed off of that and was able to make these scramble drill throws. And it was gorgeous football that second half by the Panthers offense. So I think with this, we don't see it enough. Seattle really, really exploited the weaknesses there. They're just better across the board than even the best players there in Carolina. You know what I mean? And so I think
It was a tough match. I know. When we previewed the game, I remember, I obviously picked Seattle, and I was just like, I am really having trouble to see how this Carolina Panther. I said Ted McMillan has to have an incredible game against week 1, but I didn't think it would happen, and it didn't happen.
Yeah,
And
and
it
I
was
think Tampa Bay's corners are very, very good. That's why I think that Todd Bowles should unleash him a little bit more to play more aggressive. Greg and I were talking about this week on NFL Daily, where it's like, you almost, if you're Todd Bowles, this is it, man. You have to play out of tendency a little bit more because your corners clearly show that they're capable of doing it. You have 3 good ones, and you are going to have to bully the Panthers receivers around, and you know that you can. It's possible because they also make mental mistakes when they're getting pushed around at the line of scrimmage. Xavier Legette has made mental mistakes in that.
On the flip side, though, and you alluded to this, T-Mac did have a win against Jamel Dean, the go ball press, and then Coker had a big win against Ben Morrison. It was also a go ball, and I think it might come down to that. And I think with Bryce, it's different from like we were talking about. Well, first of all, it's with Tampa, you do want to attack the linebackers in coverage always. You do want the short passing game more so than the run game. They're very good in run defense still in Tampa. Giant Vita Vea picture. But you alluded to the screens. I looked this up because I felt true. Tampa's 30th in EPA per play and yards per play against screens. So I think the passing game as an extension of a run game, and then you're going to have to hit on a couple of those explosives again. T-Mac, Coker. I mean, they won. For people have forgotten last time. But it was close.
And it was a great second half, to your point, out of those receivers, too. That's really where it swung, was right after that catch. And then Nick Scorton came to life in the second half, and Derek Brown was doing Derek Brown things, and all of those things are true. But the receivers, something clicked into place after that first half where they really showed that they can reach this threshold that they need to be at consistently over the course of a game. I love what you said about the extension of the run game. If I'm Dave Canales, I basically say I'm using my inside runs to set up my wide perimeter runs and my screens, and bucketing my screens and perimeter runs in the same category on my call sheet, because Tampa Bay, first of all, is, even at the start when they were playing outstanding run and pass defense, they were still really susceptible to the explosive play. And that's where I thought maybe this defense isn't sustainable through the entire season, because even when they were the best defensive rushing success rate team in the NFL, I thought, okay, but they're still giving up explosive plays at a concerning rate among these other top 10 defenses right now, right? And so then you're starting to see it in specific areas, inclusive to how susceptible they are to the screen games turning into high EPA per play plays for the offense. Love the layers that, especially I think this offensive line for Carolina is super underrated. And I think you want those tackles running in space and blocking. And I agree. I think that that's exactly one of the absolute hinge points of this matchup, where if you set up those layers in the short pass and screen game, particularly along the perimeters, and you get those tackles and some of those those athletic guards like moving down the field, I think that's great. They with Rico Dowdle, especially earlier on, and Chuba Hubbard, that was one of the most fun things to watch about those two running backs and the season that they've had, is how successful they could be in the screen game.
You mentioned the offensive line, by the way. That was another, when I look back on there are 2 things I noted also from the game that I'll mention before we pick. One, Bryce Young was pretty good against the blitz. That was my question, because I knew Paul would heat him up, and he ended up going 6 for 9 for 71 yards and a touchdown. Or no, that was on third down, probably. Against the blitz, he was 6 for 11 for 88 yards and a touchdown. He was sacked twice, but hit on a couple big plays. That's going to be a key again. And then the other thing in this game that I had forgotten was Ike Ekwonu didn't play. It was Josh Nijman was playing left tackle, and he gave up 8 pressures, which is more than anyone else on the team. So potentially Bryce could have better protection than he did last time these teams played. I am picking Carolina. I hate picking Panthers games. I have made this clear, but I think the combination of the Panthers corners and the way that they're playing, and just the many holes in the Bucs defense and the lack of pass rush, I think you could get a good Bryce Young game, maybe famous last words, and we'll see. Bounce back from last week. And then Sunday won't matter. How about you?
I'm picking the Panthers as well. So maybe between the two of us, we will inject some neutrality into the chaos force that is the Carolina Panthers. But I'm picking them because it really, for me, it's simple. I don't trust Baker to play a patient game the way that he's been right now, the stakes that are on the line, potentially jobs on the line. Like, I don't believe that Baker Mayfield will play a patient enough game to play the Carolina Panthers the way that is the most effective.
All right. So if this, by the way, if the Bucks win, and then the Saints, and I guess we should pick that is a relevant game. If the Saints and the Falcons, oh my God, I truly don't know who I'd pick in that game, Jordan. I mean, I guess probably I would go Atlanta, just watching Bijan,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a coin flip for me. Sorry.
I'm gonna go Saints for that game.
Great.
I just because of Tyler Shuck, but also the fighting Brandon Staley's are back, baby, and going against
BOA. I mentioned this.
yes, I love it.
Okay, let's do Seahawks Niners. Okay, so these teams played in week 1, which is crazy, right? Because the Panthers Bucks game just happened, so I was looking back at some of my notes from like Seahawks Niners. Basically, the Seahawks offense versus the Niners defense is completely irrelevant now. For people who
Right.
forgot, Nick Bosa called game. Like it was 17-13. The Seahawks defense was actually probably played Brock Purdy better than everyone this year.
Mhm.
And it came down to the final drive. There was 42 seconds left. Darnold drove, and then Nick Bosa strip sacked him and ended it. So Nick Bosa's not in this game. Fred Warner's not in this game.
Mhm.
Things are different. So I didn't really feel like on that side of the ball there was that much to take from it, Jordan. And let's talk about that side of the ball first before we get to the real like matchup, which is the Niners offense versus the Seattle defense. So I'm going to throw out a stat to you, and I want to get your level of concern head into this one.
Mm-hmm.
The Seahawks offense was the best offense in football for the first 8 weeks of the season or so.
Mm-hmm.
Since week 10, the passing offense, just let's focus on Sam Darnold for a second, is negative 0.02 EPA per play, which is not only 20th, that's worse than last year by a decent clip. Last year they finished 0.03 positive. Is it over? Like they're winning because of their defense, and I feel like the complete collapse of the Seahawks offense is kind of flown under the radar a little bit because they're winning. Am I being overly critical of the Seahawks offense?
I just love the way you asked that. Is it over? Like, because it's like
it's not over because the defense is arguably the best or the second best in the NFL. So it's not.
Well, no.
It's still an amazing football team. But I do. Am I wrong in feeling like people have not really acknowledged how bad the offense has now been for like 2 months?
I think you are right to acknowledge it. I also think that maybe the Seahawks fan a little bit is like, hang on a minute, guys. Can we get this fixed before the playoffs?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Freaking out. Okay, to calm me down. Well, okay. Hey, I'll calm myself down. They get to play the Niners defense, so.
But here's where I'm actually not going to calm you down.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I think what the simple thing to say about this Niners defense is exactly like, and they can't pressure. And the problem, as we know, the Sam Darnold problem that's been happening is the pressure and how the pressure affects him and the turnovers and exactly.
For the audio audience, I did a Sam Darnold impression. By the way, according to NGS, when pressured, he has lost the second most win probability percentage points in the NFL.
Yikes. However, what I will say, and the 49ers, they can't pressure the quarterback.
Not at all.
The thing, though, that might become a problem here, because you would think that this is a total favorable matchup for Seattle's offense. I might push back on that a little because, as you know, like I love coaching. I'm fascinated by coaching. I love learning how it works and how people decide what they're going to do. This Robert Saleh plan, this time of year, especially with this game, the stakes of it being what they are, it's a playoff game. You switch gears as a coordinator, offense or defense, into, okay, now we're playing matchup-based football. We're not playing necessarily our stuff anymore. We are playing week by week matchup-based football. And I think where they will lack the ability to legitimately pressure the quarterback, what they can do is fake pressure. And what they can do is show simulated pressure.
Yeah.
What they can do is act as if they are trying to bring things against Sam Darnold with extra defenders, blitzing, showing blitz different ways, running some of these simulations and these creepers that other teams have found success, delayed stunts, delayed blitzes, those types of things where you can make Sam Darnold think that he is about to be pressured, and yet you're not actually pressuring him. And so I think when you're Robert Saleh, you have a really honest conversation with yourself. Can I actually pressure the quarterback enough to rattle him the way that other teams have effectively done so far over the last several weeks? If the answer is no, and I think it should be no,
It's definitely
and can I do it without like sending an overwhelming number of blitzes to where I have to take away help against JSN and et cetera, et cetera? If the answer is no, which it is no, but if he comes to the answer being no, then you have to design things that make the quarterback think that something is going to happen that is never actually going to happen. But you have to make him think that. And that's where I think this might be a really sneaky sort of like more mathematically inclined matchup to try to do those types of things, to play true matchup football, design football like that. And I think Robert Saleh is one of the few coaches capable of doing that still in the regular season.
It's a big part of why I think Seattle really needs to run the ball effectively.
Yes.
Because Sam Darnold has struggled with simulated pressures and coverage disguise. And so even when he's not getting heated up, there have been moments where he acts like it. And one of the ways you solve that is you run the ball well. And this Niners pass rush is bad. This Niners run defense is also very bad. They are dead last in success rate. They typically counter multiple tight end offenses like Seattle by playing nickel. And Seattle, for all of their kind of up and down running the football this year, it's actually improved a little bit, honestly, as the year has gone on. And this last game was pretty good against the Rams, right? The Panthers. But when they run against nickel or dimes or sub packages, they're averaging 5.2 yards per carry, which is pretty good. So I think that is going to be a big part of this one for settling Sam Darnold. And while the Seahawks do not have a great running game, I do think it's gotten better. And I do think the Niners' run defense is such that it's important for Clint Kubiak to stick with it and attack them that way.
Totally, because you have to look at some of the under the hood stuff with what the Bears did. And yeah, that game was like points, and so much fun and throws that are impossible that still got made and all these things. But like Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift, they weren't high in volume yardage, but both running backs had over a 50% success rate. And so picking away at this 49ers defense like that, it's helpful to you in so many ways, inclusive to the fact that like I mentioned Robert Saleh, he's one of the few out of this original like Pete Carroll tree that has broken tendency a little bit more and played into some more like pure quarters and those types of things. And he is going to be able, because he has some of that multiplicity in his bag, he's going to be able to bracket JSN in different ways, whether or not JSN is the target. And so what else will help pull defenders away from JSN is the threat of a consistent run game, not necessarily an explosive one. If you are hitting singles and doubles against this 49ers defense, eventually you will get your moment to create an explosive because the defensive coordinator will just not be able to stand it. And so I think that is, to your point about running the ball, you don't need to have both rushers go for even 60 yards apiece. Like they didn't even combine last week. The Bears running backs didn't even combine for 100 yards together. But again, that success rate, it really impacted the way that they could take some of those shots down the field against this 49ers defense. And I do think also that the Seahawks in the run game, inclusive to their tight ends, have such a size advantage over this group of 49ers defenders as well.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned JSN because
what a delight also.
I mean, so the thing that I'd forgotten until I went back and looked at this game He had 13 targets for 124 yards. No other Seahawks receiver had more than 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the Niners have one good corner. Sorry. I feel like the Niners are probably like, you're so critical of the Niners defense. Like, I'm going to get to the Niners offense and you can hear me talk about how good you are. Upton Stouts had his moments, but Lenoir, I always put a little bit too much French sauce on it. Lenoir, he's the guy that you don't want to throw at in this offense, and the Kubiak's really good at moving JSN around to try to get matchups. But to your point, they're obviously going to zero in on him. The Niners are 32nd in DVOA versus wide receiver twos. Rashid Shaheed, this game is why they traded for you. Like I really feel like there's an opportunity here for him that he hasn't really seized since coming. Like, he's made an impact in the return game and he's had a couple of moments, but he really hasn't been Jourdan, that force, that wide receiver 2 that I think they hoped he would be. And I feel like this one's it, because the Niners, there's just a lot of places you can attack in the secondary.
Yeah, and I will say too, you would think so too, especially with his familiarity with Clint Kubiak in the past. But Clint Kubiak is, after all, a Kubiak. And so I feel like this could potentially be a big AJ Barner as wide receiver 2, the tight end as wide receiver 2 game. I'm not sure he'll be able to help himself. Yeah. So I just think that it's one of those tendencies that tree has had over the years. And AJ Barner has really emerged as a really good player for Seattle, and something a lot of their sort of alternative looking concepts run through, and a lot of their blocking structure and all of those types of things. So wide receiver 2 is absolutely a vulnerability. I just don't know that it's going to come from a wide receiver. But yes, Rashid Shaheed is going to show, hey, this is the proof of concept here. This would be the time to do it.
Barner, to me, in the play action game could be really useful here. And another thing that really shocked me from my notes, and I had forgotten this, because I think all the offseason we were like, Clint Kubiak's going to be understanding outside zone play action. And then they ran it only on 8% of dropbacks versus the Niners in week 1. And I remember being very confused by that. Now I feel like there's even more of a reason to use play action with the
no Fred Warner.
Yeah, so I would like to see them do that too. It's another way to make things a little bit simpler for Darnold, especially if they don't send pressure. Yeah, I think, like, ultimately, can they run the ball? Can Darnold avoid going full chicken with his head cut off? If the answer to both those questions is yes, then I like the Seahawks offense against them. I really do. The other side is, boy, like, just Alien versus Predator. Who's Alien? Who's Predator? So this is an odd one, week 1, because the Niners offense struggled. And so I think, actually, let's take a step back here. To me, the for Seattle, we hired Mike McDonald for a reason. A moment was when they played the Niners the second time in his first season, and they shut down the offense to some degree, and they won that game 20-17. And watching that and thinking, like, Seattle's been killed by San Francisco and these Kyle Shanahan, McVay offenses for years now. They went out, they got the guy who showed with Baltimore he could stop it, and it finally happened, right? And so week 1, that continued to some degree. I mean, Brock Purdy he turned the ball over a couple times. He was under pressure on over 50% of dropbacks. Do you think, Jourdan, that there's reason to think this time, the end of the year, is going to look different from how it did week 1 between the Niners offense and the Seahawks defense?
I just think that the Seahawks defense has stayed so excellent. And I do think that this is a true, like, clash of the Titans game, to your point, Alien versus Predator. And I couldn't pick if we were just saying it is only this unit going against this unit, I could not pick this game 10 times out of 10. I would probably say it's an even split, right? And five wins, 5 losses for each. So the thing about Seattle is they are perfectly built to contain and sort of smother down on any type of alternative personnel. And I think that they've showed it a few times this year. They certainly showed it against, like, the Rams 13 personnel twice. And they've showed it in flashes last year. They also showed it against San Francisco. And I think where this game, if you get a really excellent top tier game out of Ernest Jones, Nick Emanwari, and Julian Love. I believe he's healthy, right?
He's
Then
playing. Yeah,
yeah,
he's good. He did the
then
interception last week.
yeah, and then you will, I think, be able to stop all the things that Kyle Shanahan likes to do with George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk. And especially if those players specifically, and I mention them for a reason, because I believe a lot of them will be playing some of this matchup football as sort of these matchup nullifiers that they can be. And if you can especially get their eyes to stay clean at and after the snap, because with Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle, who's back at practice this week, what they like to do is they like to change gaps using motion. And motion often, I'm not telling you anything new, Mina, but for the listener, like motion often serves so many different types of purposes for coaches that use it correctly, other than, we saw some really questionable uses of motion a few years ago in Pittsburgh. But now coaches who use it the way that it's intended as a tool to math change and all of those things, Kyle Shanahan does it better than almost any coach in the league, and the other two who do it the best are out of his coaching tree. And so what they're doing with Kyle Juszczyk is they're running him on all kinds of different motions from all kinds of different alignments in the backfield, either the flex position, or he's at fullback, pure fullback, or he's in the wing, or he's like in the eye or something. And they're running him on a lot of different types of pattern motions, including one that I like to call the heron motion, because it's like a heron diving into the water for a fish. It's like a big loop that he just crashes.
He fell down doing that last week, by the way.
I know.
It still worked. It still worked.
Get in the way, stay in the way.
They all fell. I was like, oh my God, he tripped.
So, but what they're doing is they're basically leading the linebacker, the slot defender, and the safety who's coming down to help in support, believe that the gap that the run is going to be through a gap that makes sense. But then at the snap, when the motion is occurring between either player, Kittle or Juszczyk, the gap is then changing after the player on defense has already committed to the gap. So that's part of what makes this so effective. And the fact that you cannot tell, because there is no tendency to these motions, because he runs different types of patterns with the motions from different alignments. So that's where what you need to do if you are the defenders on the other side is never assume that the gap that you think it is going to be the gap, and to keep your eyes as clean as possible through the motion and then key in on the new gap. It's so much easier me saying it. It's almost impossible to do. And that's part of the reason why Kyle's killing people with it.
It's been like watching some of his plays back from the Bears game on tape. It's amazing to watch how he uses, I would say, the Juszczyk motions that you described in great detail there, and then just McCaffrey and where he is and where he's lined up and his little.
That guy too.
Completely a mind F for. I mean, the things he did to the Bears linebackers were just very unkind in that game. So yeah, it's really hard to stop. But you made another point that I want to go back to, which is the Seahawks. You talked about how they can defend alternative personnel, but so in layman's terms, the Niners put big bodies on the field and get you to match with big bodies, and then they throw on you, right? The Seahawks don't put big bodies on the field; they just do not. In fact, when these teams played, they were in. The Niners did a lot of their 21 personnel and 22 and multiple tight ends and all of that. The Seahawks were in their sub packages almost 90% of that game. This is how they play. They say, we do not care. We can stop the run with Nick Emanwari as our big nickel, and we do not need to, put another linebacker on the field. And it's part of why, like, we talk so much about Mike McDonald and schematically how he's really good at stopping Kyle Shanahan offense. But I would say, like, scheme wise or personnel wise, I meant to say, they have the people now to do it. And they did do it. And it's a unique challenge. It doesn't mean you can't. I think you can run on them. And I think we've seen some teams do that with success. Reasonable efficiency. But I do think they're really good at limiting explosives from those looks in a way that very few defenses are. The thing that I want to highlight in this game that I think is just so massive is whether or not Trent Williams plays. So
I know
As of late.
you've been on watch all day. I know.
Yeah, because I think it's that important, Jourdan. I
Yeah,
mean, they
totally.
the format
Yeah.
rusher Brock Purdy over 40% of the time Trent Williams played in that game. So Trent Williams has a hammy. Reporters are saying long shot. Kyle Shanahan said, we'll see. He hasn't ruled him out. He didn't practice on Tuesday. I honestly think this could decide this for me because in addition, so Seattle has one of the best four-man rushers in the NFL statistically, percentage-wise, they get pressure, right, at a very, very high rate without blitzing. But the thing that I think they're so, and Mike McDonald, one of the things he's so good at doing is it's almost like Shanahan-like on defense in a way. He's so good at hunting matchups on the offensive line.
Yes.
If you have a weak link, he will find it.
Yeah.
And through a combination of simulated pressures, overloads, lining up stunts, lining up Leonard Williams inside out, he will attack it. And I just feel like if Williams isn't in this play and they're having to like reshuffle the line, that makes me nervous for Brock Purdy, who has been like a maestro at extending plays. And that's kind of been what has really like turbo powered him in the last few weeks. But this is a different animal from Chicago. Very different.
Yeah, totally. From the rush to the coverage too, because Brock Purdy extending plays is great, and he's become one of the best perimeter throwers in who's playing right now, which is notable because it's a different thing than that Kyle's had asked him to do a couple years ago. And I know you talked about on your show with Dominique Foxworth too, like he can be anything now, and that's excellent for Kyle because Kyle loves to mold people into whatever he wants them to be, and so he has this with this quarterback, and so I feel like it's such a great point, and it's probably why I will pick the Seahawks if Trent Williams doesn't play, because you can say how even this like Monstars clash is between San Francisco's offense and Seattle's defense, because it is all things equal. But without Trent Williams, you're not just losing a player, you're losing a +2 or +3 player, which puts you at a deficit against a team and a front full of +2 and +3 players. So even if you're just adding points, back and forth on a chart, you are at a deficit massively without Trent Williams because of all those things.
They call the game differently. I was looking at with and without Trent Williams, I was playing some of the splits since 2024. They pass more because they're worse at running. I mean, we're talking about the pass protection, but the splits are pretty dramatic running the football, particularly obviously to the left side. They average 5.4 yards per carry, goes down to 4.8. They call more screens. Obviously, there's a higher pressure rate. It's just he is really, really important in this offense.
Yeah. It takes away what you can do with George Kittle too, Mina, because and Kyle Juszczyk, all of these things that you can do with that we just talked about with George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk, all the creative stuff that you can do. Well, okay, what if on 30% of the pass dropback snaps, he's got a chip instead? One of the two has to chip. Then you're like removing mathematical leverage every time you're missing Trent Williams. It doesn't just affect Trent Williams and the offensive line, it affects all the other skill guys too.
And then tackling becomes paramount for Seattle. Tackling is always important when you play the San Francisco 49ers. But if the ball's coming out faster, not letting some of those 7-yard slants become 12-yard gains becomes really important. Seattle's a very good tackling team. The injury is massive enough to where it did swing me for Seattle, but that's Sam Darnold could absolutely ruin those plans. I feel like I sound like a hater. I don't mean to be a hater, but like the game, it has been what it's been, and he's had flashes, so we shall see. All right, let's take a quick break, come back, and talk about Ravens Steelers, and then we'll do the New Year's resolutions. All right, we're back. So we have great news. Lamar Jackson's back at practice. If you're Steelers fans, you're like, that's not great news. It's great news for me as a viewer of football. Sorry. Love you, Tyler Huntley, but I want this game to be everything that it's supposed to be. And for Steelers fans, it's not, because they don't have DK Metcalf and now Darnell Washington. Potentially TJ Watt, though. Big deal. Let's start with the Ravens offense because I do feel pretty good about Lamar since practicing on Wednesday, that's a pretty good sign. He often just doesn't.
Yeah, he's not there on Wednesdays usually, so this is good.
So that's a big deal though. I didn't think he was gonna play. Did you? The signs seem bad.
The signs to me still seem bad. I think he's going to play, but my concern. So first of all, I hope they ship the Matthew Stafford Immortal Chamber to them just for use for that week, because we do want Lamar Jackson at the peak of his powers. I am concerned. We don't know what the ceiling of what he can do is yet, right?
Never.
And what I was really concerned. Yeah, right. Yeah. He reaches new highs, it seems, all the time. But when he's hurt, I'm concerned about this because of what some of the commentary was, even out of the locker room after he had the back injury, before John Harbaugh came up and talked about his back at the podium. But it was like teammates were like, he can't even really move.
Yeah.
Normal human movement, not even football player movement. Like he can't, it's hard to walk, like those types of things. That is super concerning to me. Yes, I think it's great that he's practicing, and I hope he stays as healthy as possible, or as close to it as it's possible for him to be with an injury like this. But when I think about this offense and how this offense best works, it is because his movement is a threat to defenses, and including his passing as a mover. Like when he is throwing on the run, there is nothing in the world you can do to stop that. If he does that the way that he normally can, you are helpless as a defense against that. You have to hope that you make like the play of your life on any one of those given plays, because the pass will be on target, close to perfect, and you're also going to already have been covering for a heck of a long time before you even get the chance to make the play on the ball, because of the way he can extend the play. When they were talking about Tyler Huntley and the way that this like run game stayed as open as it possibly could, what they're talking about is the defenders hesitating long enough to help the offensive line clear space. You saw the yards before contact per rush. It was like 2.2 against the Packers, which is insane. It's one of the best of all season of any team. And so part of that is because defenders are hesitating because they don't know if the quarterback's going to run it or if it's going to be a handoff.
Because Tyler Huntley is a dual threat quarterback.
Yeah.
And it is so fundamental to the Ravens run game. And you did see it. And especially I think about the goal line, they hit on a couple power runs for touchdowns. And it's the best the run game has looked in a while. Now, some of that is Green Bay's run defense is kind of abysmal right now. But last week was the best the Ravens have run the ball all year long by a pretty significant margin. And it was a lot of outside zone. It's their custom, but it was a variety of types of runs. Both Henry and Mitchell were extremely good. So when I was going into this week against the Steelers thinking that Lamar wouldn't play, my only question was when Pittsburgh sells out to stop the run, can Tyler Huntley just hit on like a few play action passes, right? What Lamar Jackson can, right? So I think your point is is he mobile enough to help the run game is a really important point. Because the Steelers run defense, even though they got bossed around by Buffalo, but they're not bad. They're certainly better than Green Bay is.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't even have to be as effective as it was last week. I think you just have to make them worry that it will be.
Yeah.
Because it is not a function of it. It is the function of the hesitation of it. Right? It is that is where the getting off the line of scrimmage for the offensive line, and then the ripple effect throughout the rest of the line of scrimmage and behind it and in front of it. That's where that happens, is in those moments of hesitation, of milliseconds that you really cannot totally pick up live, but you can see it in slow motion, replays, when you see their eye, the defender's eyes changing from gap to gap and trying to stay on the quarterback and also looking at the running back. You can see those types of things. And so I don't think unfortunately, Lamar has been injured before this year, and we saw that this offense did not necessarily have the same teeth that we know it is capable of to it. Some of that too is, struggling to discern, really, do they truly have a number one receiver? Do they only sometimes have a number one receiver? Like, what are the tight ends doing on any given week? Like, all of these things obviously factor in. The offensive line has been not up to par for a lot of the season. Like, a lot of these things are also factors here.
Yeah.
But making a defense at least believe that it will be a threat is paramount.
It made things so easy for Huntley. Like, just, I mean, he only had like a 4-yard average depth of target. It was like a lot of play action. I don't think he completed a pass over 10 yards in that game because he didn't have to. Now, again, I do think it's important to say the Steelers are better against play action, short passes than the Packers, certainly at this point. So there's more of a challenge. It's also important to say that when Lamar played them, not that week 14, he was pretty up and down. This was the likely touchdown that wasn't game. So they could have won that game. But he did have his ups and downs, and it's always a question mark. Like when he came in this last game before the week 16, pardon me, before he got hurt, he looked great for a quarter. You remember? It was like, whoa, against the Patriots. And
he's
then
back.
he looked amazing. And then he went out. So it's just like, I joke about the Panthers. You can't pick Panthers game. I have a lot of trouble predicting what the Ravens offense is going to look like without knowing what Lamar is going to look like. But I do, if it does feel like the run game might be clicking at the right time. They also ran the ball well on New England, who's about run defense too. And yeah, I think like TJ Watt is needed in this game. It sounds like he's going to play. I mean, checking, it seems like they're optimistic. Obviously, they still have very good pass rushers outside of him, but that could be decisive on that side of the ball.
Yeah, because they kind of rely on a lot of the Steelers' success has happened when they're making on defense. I mean, is when they're making some of these splash plays. Mike Tomlin was even sort of lamenting a couple that almost happened but didn't against Cleveland, and sort of pointing to those particular moments as a loss, which I thought was kind of telling. Because yes, obviously every team would like to have splash plays, but the Steelers historically over the course of this year, when they have been sacking the quarterback, disrupting the line of scrimmage, batting passes, making balls tip, getting interceptions, tackles for loss, those types of things, even neutral tackles, like that is actually when they've been sort of controlling these games. But it's almost like an offense that's too reliant on explosives, right? If an offense is too reliant on explosives, what happens if those explosives just aren't hitting that day? You can't really count on it. So I do think that was a little bit telling. And TJ Watt certainly is a factor for that, because even if he's similar, it's funny, similar to like the Lamar question, even if he's not at full strength, you're always got an eye on him.
Yeah. Steelers defense has been kind of hard to project week to week, because there's some weeks where you're just like, God, this is bad. But then they shut down the Steelers and the Lions, the Colts back when the Colts were, good. So they're a little bit trickier for me than the Steelers offense, who I think I know every week what I'm going to get pretty much. The Steelers defense is capable of higher highs. I really believe that. I mean, all right, we'll get to the Steelers offense. I mean, so okay, going back to the game, they won that game because of DK Metcalf. Full stop. The Ravens played a ton of man coverage against them. Rodgers went 8 for 14 for 165 yards. More than half of those were deep balls to DK Metcalf. They got him on Marlon Humphrey a couple times. I mean, all of his deep passes worked to DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf has been really outside of the run game, the engine of the Steelers offense. Aaron Rodgers wants to throw the ball quickly. He wants to throw the ball outside numbers. He wants to throw the ball to DK. DK's not playing in this game. Massive. So I think my question for you is, assuming that the Ravens watched the Browns and play a lot of man coverage against this team without DK Metcalf, they already did with him. Do you think the Steelers can come up with an answer? Like, are there answers on this roster without DK? Because this last week it looked like there weren't any until the final drive when he rediscovered the existence of Pat Freiermuth. Like,
it's if the Ravens forget how to tackle again, that's the only way. Because what Aaron Rodgers is going to do is, he's, regardless of whether he's being pressured or not, he will get the ball out fast. and he will try to lean on some of these yards after catch plays. And early in the season, especially, they were super successful. That was really the only, before it really started clicking with DK, that was really the thing that was the only explosive element of this offense, was the yards after catch plays, specifically to the running backs, who I think have been really good this season on the whole, in the pass game and the run game. The problem with that is that I actually trust the Baltimore, I do trust the Baltimore defense more than I did at the beginning of the year. It's kind of like a slow burn defense year over year. It seems like, hinged on where Kyle Hamilton is moved to, and whether it's back deeper or closer to the line of scrimmage. And it also, to me, it's clearly not a sustainable way for the Steelers offense to operate. Could you get one game out of it doing that? Sure. But this late in the season, I'm just not so sure that it will have the same effect. And I do think that this Darnell Washington loss.
Okay, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Speaking of yards after the catch.
So here's a number that really jumped out to me with and without Darnell Washington. Steelers run game's been pretty efficient this year. It's actually, I think they're top 10 in DVOA. I don't have it in front of me, but they're pretty good. On third down, so they run the ball a lot, right? Third and short. With him, they have a 70% conversion rate, which is best in the NFL by a significant margin. Without him, that drops nearly 20 percentage points to 53%.
That's insane. That's Dave Damashek Jenga piece, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's always the thing is with Darnell Washington, it's also how he opens up. Like, he's important, not just as a passing mismatch and a do it all like Joker type of player for them, but in any part of the field, by the way, red zone too, as obviously for obvious, like, I'm just bigger than you reasons. But he also affects their blocking surface so significantly. When we talked about Trent Williams being like a +3 player, that's what I kind of considered Darnell Washington as well, because of the ways he can impact the run and pass game, whether he is the target or whether he is assisting in opening the target. So if you watch him away from the ball, it's pretty fun a lot of the time to see where he moves on the field, where Arthur Smith had moved him. And then also he does dramatically, even if he still was, maturing as a player and growing into himself as a blocker, like, he's just bigger than everybody else. He literally takes up more space, Mina. I know you can't relate because you are tiny, but he literally takes up more space than the average massive human already on the field. But also they move him a lot. So he picks up, tucks under his arm, multiple gaps with him every time he moves.
I am very interested in seeing whether this run game is efficient without him.
Yeah.
Because when they run 6 offensive linemen, it's really 7, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So do they lean on that more often? And also, you're going against a Ravens defense that's not fearing anyone deep, so they're going to be
everyone's down. Yeah.
I think, not to be all doom and gloom here, you mentioned Gainwell as a pass catcher, important. I think they got to find a way to activate the other tight ends. Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Art Smith. Art Smith, what the heck, man? Thought you loved this guy. Thought you had a photo of this guy in your room.
Should be bigger parts of this offense, and I'd argue they have to be in this one because of the DK. The DK, and his absence is really a big deal. Final question on that, because I have seen this. We talked a little bit about the run game with Huntley and whatnot. Do you think there's any case to be made that, like, this is like with Lamar, you want to like keep him healthy for the playoffs and not risk it here? It's always hard for me to answer these questions without knowing, the details of player health and what they're actually at stake. I completely rebut the idea that, this offense is better with Tyler Huntley. I think that, I know we talked about his impact on the run game, but I think that had a lot more to do with just the way the Packers defense played and the way the run game was clicking. But do you think it's like too risky to play Lamar here? Do you think they need to play Lamar to win this game?
I think they need to play Lamar as close to Lamar as possible to win this game. If he is at practice and he does not look like himself, then it's a darn if you do, darn if you don't situation, because you are Lamar Jackson at 40% still gives you the best chance to win a football game against most teams in the NFL if he can execute in a way and stay upright and be healthy and all these things. Like he can make magical things happen. The problem is do you run the risk of aggravating an injury? Again, we don't know the extent of it. Do you run the risk of aggravating an injury that is really would significantly impact not just a player's ability to play the sport, but also like his well-being in general? Back injuries are super serious. Or in doing so, sort of throw in the towel a little bit on saying, okay, because this is a playoff game. That's the thing. I think if you think about it as a playoff game, you say, yes, we play Lamar Jackson. Now, I will say that I don't think this offense is better pound for pound, like snap over snap with Tyler Huntley than Lamar Jackson. Of course not. I do think that if you think you can beat the Steelers and not injure your quarterback because you understand how compressed the Steelers will be on the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
Like if you think you can lean on your like truly, and the scary thought, I know, if you think you can lean on your Baltimore Ravens defense and preserve your quarterback and give him a little bit of a bye week, then you think about it.
Playing with fire. I will say, and I look, Lamar knows his health better than anyone. And there's always
probably better than John Harbaugh knows his health, I would assume. Yeah.
I don't love that he's fighting to play in this week though.
Yeah.
Because there's been weirdness between him and the team. There just is throughout. It's not a controversial thing. They literally he had a trade request, right? And there's been moments and ends of seasons, and he hasn't played. He's been hurt, whatever. If I'm a Raven, if I'm on that team, I love that he's fighting to play this week. I think it's a big deal to see him out there. And so I'm going to pick the Ravens, mostly because the other side of the ball, just what that offense looked like with that DK Metcalf was brutal to watch. How about you?
I am also picking the Ravens regardless of quarterback because I just think that this offense, I shudder to think at how just suffocated it looks and compressed, like Star Wars trash shoot scenario here with the Steelers offense. And I'm not looking forward to that. I mean, I'm looking forward to this game truly, but I'm not looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
All right. The worst teams in the NFL. Let's do this.
Woohoo!
First podcast of 2026, New Year's resolutions. I'll go first. I've got I'm going in draft order here as it currently stands. Oh, by the way, we're not doing quarterbacks.
Yes.
So
good.
Half these teams, obviously quarterback, but not all. Actually, just a few. So that's boring. Obviously, the Raiders quarterback, the Browns, whatever. Okay, so I was a little torn actually in the Raiders because there's multiple needs. And so I kind of cheated and I just wrote offensive infrastructure.
An
offense period. The line and wide receiver is obviously, it's one of the worst situations for both the quarterback, the running back, and play caller, honestly, even though Chip Kelly was bad, that I've ever seen. And I was looking at the salary cap of 2026. You're really just paying Colton Miller, who got hurt, and Alex Kappa, not that much money. It's a very cheap offensive line. So you got to address that. It was an absolute train wreck this year, but you need receivers. You traded away Jacoby Myers, who's now flourishing in Jacksonville. The young guys have gotten some run. Finally, we're seeing some Jack Bash, whatever. I don't care. You need receivers because you're going to get a quarterback. And if they take a young quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, let's say, and they put him in what this offense looked like, he is screwed. So they got to attack multiple positions on offense for this thing to be functional next year.
Yeah, I love that. I hope that they start up front even before they go to spend like insane resources. But I also hope
year.
And they just got, and I don't know whose decision it really was. I know Pete Carroll loves the idea of a high profile running back in his offense, right? But like in his team. But like I also know that Greg and I talked actually to John Spytek at the Combine, and he was like talking about how they have to really truly know what they have out of these younger offensive linemen. They don't have bleep, like they don't have anything. I didn't want you to have to bleep me out. You're very kind producers to bleep me out, but they don't have anything. So yeah, start there. I would say good resolution.
All right, you have the New York Giants.
Yes. Okay. My resolution for the New York Giants is hire an absolute maniac as your head coach. What I mean by this is hire, and I hate this term, but like hire a total alpha psychopath to come in who has a plan, who is successful, who does not deviate from that plan, whether it's an offensive guy or a defensive guy who can translate the very specific part to whole traits, intangibles, and all the variables of everything he wants in a specific player in order to make that player maximize that player's potential within the system that he wants to run, where it's a handshake between player and scheme and not just a bunch of talented guys sort of sporadically dropped all over this roster the way that it is right now, especially on defense. So what I think too is I don't like an overhead GM. My light just flickered in my house. That's funny. Joe Shane is listening. I don't like, right when I said that, it was like,
I was literally, as you were talking, I was like, I was going to jump in and say, wipe the slate clean, but you did it for me.
There's like a demon in my house. Once I mentioned Joe Shane, the light started flickering.
I mean, what are we doing? Like, I cannot believe that is even under consideration.
But it can work. It can work if it's the right coach. If it's a psychopath maniac coach, you see it with Ben Johnson. You saw it with Kyle Shanahan. You see it with D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio. You see it. Yeah. You saw it with Sean McVay and Les Snead. It can actually work if that coach is advanced enough in what he is and what he is not willing to deviate about what he is in order to basically say, I'm in charge. This is what I want from my roster. Ben Johnson was able to tell Ryan Poles, like down to the when you're watching tape, and like you're looking at how the screen game, these guys, how I want to run the screen game. This is how I want them to move. Like very granular micro detail. You just need that. And that's what the Giants need. If they decide they are going to keep Joe Shane, this is what they need. Hire a maniac at head coach.
I love that. And yeah, I don't think they should keep him. So but you need
the light's flickering again.
And GM who are working hand in glove. Who's the hand? Who's the glove in that scenario? I don't know. But
should be the coach. The coach should be the hand and the glove, and then the GM should just be the person who helps put the glove on.
I like that. Tom Brady's glove in
super villain.
Didn't work. I just think you want people working on the same path with the same timeline. That's the thing that I don't like is when the GM and the coach are on different timelines and have different incentives. Joe Shane's not like Trent Baalke where it's like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Obviously he's hit on some players, but not enough. That's all I have to say.
And they don't fit in that's it. Sorry, I know I'm dragging this out, but they don't fit in a way that they're some really talented players. They don't fit in a way that builds in a scheme. They don't fit in a way that builds together in enough complementary ways.
Some misses too, man. All right. Jets. I know I'm doing the opposite of I just wrote defense. I mean, this whole team is like an absolute, like there's so many holes on the team, but the defense is just so devoid of, like it's just all three levels. They obviously traded away their two core players, which I don't think was a mistake. And they have so much in ammunition now to attack, so many draft picks. They have so much cap space. Their highest cap hit behind Justin Fields, who's not even that much and probably gone, is Brandon Stevens. So they have nearly $100 million right now to spend. Like the Doogie is his name, right? Moogie? What's
Moogie? Doogie. I'm going to call him that from now on. Darren Moogie.
Darren Moogie. Like, who has more power than him this offseason? Like, he can go crazy. So I'm not even going to say which position. I think every position they have to address. But, from what I hear, is some pretty good defensive players in the draft. So this could be a good one. But obviously, they've got to address quarterback as well. But yeah, just spending spree. It's go crazy. I think it'll be interesting to see. They probably need to add another receiver as well. But otherwise, like at least the offensive line is trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
A couple decent skill players. But the defense is just a disaster.
As with the original Doogie, with great power comes great responsibility.
The Moogie is what Brock Purdy hit after the touchdown. Okay, you got the Titans, who don't need a quarterback.
Right, which is great. Mine now, I know I sound crazy here. Titans resolution, hire Mike McCarthy. Like, I understand the playoff record. I understand that there's some
Oh,
eye rolls when you bring up this name, but I have
yeah.
to tell you, this is an organization that can't even be thinking about the postseason right now. This is an organization that has to be ripped back to the studs, other than the quarterback and Jeffrey Simmons, possibly Denard Wilson as well, who I think has done a really good job despite the circumstances this year, the defensive coordinator. They have to build foundational stuff. And one thing I think that Mike McCarthy has never gotten enough credit for, that I know through a lot of extensive reporting on this, is how many foundational elements he helped install, not just when he was in Green Bay. This is organizational stuff. It's not just roster stuff. It's not just the things that we see on the field. And then when he was in Dallas, he is the one, I know we laugh about his analytics journey or whatever, but like, he was the one that really installed and helped to hire out those departments, not just with analytics and data, but situational management and game management, to where there was an infrastructure that can compete with the modern landscape of football, and a way that could mesh with football in ways that even some buildings to this day really struggle to do, and to modernize these organizations, to basically build infrastructure behind the scenes of things that we just don't see with the product on the football field. And so I think that Mike McCarthy knows how to do that, and he's stable, because this organization, it's a multi-year rebuild. It's a disaster over there.
Yeah.
And he's stable, but he also has the personality that people like him. The front office people like him. The people like working with him. There's like
They're
whatever this
fun,
power
by the way.
whatever this power struggle is going on up in the
Yeah,
front office and the owner or whatever, everybody likes Mike McCarthy. So I
he
feel like
is a
that's
like.
where I think that's the right hire for the Tennessee Titans.
If they were to do that, I would like to see him bring in a play caller. I'll just say that.
Yes,
Bring in a
100%.
young, exciting offensive mind. Also, please give Cam Ward a receiver, please.
Yes. Maybe two as a treat.
Okay, Cardinals was hard. So we got three more teams under 500. I actually Cardinals are, I mean, such a weird team because, like, when you sit down and you look at the roster, there's still a decent amount of talent. They had some tough injuries this year. Obviously, the quarterback, I think it's been kind of exposed to as the years gone on that, like, everybody, like, Jacoby came in, got to play some bad defenses, and everyone was like, wow, he's so much better than Kyler. He's not. I like Jacoby. He's not. People were wrong. I do think they're going to move on from the quarterback, though, and that'll be
Mhm.
probably the most interesting story of the entire offseason. We'll get to that. But, like, like, Walter Nolan was really exciting, but then he got hurt, and, like, I think Sweat's been okay for them. I actually think the offense has enough pieces for me to,
Mhm.
they can still add to the offensive line a bit. But I think the defense, and specifically, I just wrote front seven, keep adding to it.
Mhm.
Defensive tackle, I know they drafted Nolan, but linebacker is a position. I feel like Jonathan Gannon, if he keeps his job, needs, for his defense to run the way he wants it to better. He needs like a star linebacker. Um, I don't know if he should keep. I haven't made up my mind about that. That's kind of one of the more on the fence coaching decisions I think that teams
Mhm.
have to make. But yeah, they're in an odd place because of the quarterback thing.
Yeah, they are. And I would imagine, because of all of the effort and shenanigans that unfolded when they tried to pair the GM and the coach together to begin with, and the fact that this was always going to be an extensive rebuild, and the fact that they can kind of scapegoat the quarterback, I do think it's more likely that other positions are affected along the team, in terms of the coaching staff, are affected before necessarily the top
Mhm.
jobs, because you've never really heard anything about those two guys, Monty Ford or Jonathan Gannon, either being split either. They worked together. They were tried to be paired together. It worked, obviously, and like all of those types of things. So it would be very rare for one to go and one to stay in that case. And you haven't heard any leaks about, people being on one island and the other person being on the other island. So I would think it would, if they do make a change, it would be more likely that the coordinators are considered first, maybe some of the skill position coaches too. But yeah, there, sage, maybe like a bunch of sage burned in the building somewhere.
I think it's tough too because the division's just so good, and
Yeah. And then there's the Cardinals.
Yeah, they got left behind a little bit. I think to your point about the coaching and all this, what they decide to do at the quarterback position is going to really set not only like the tone of like what kind of play caller they want, but also the timeline of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they draft a guy or whatnot, what are you going to get for Kyler? It's a whole mess down there.
I would like to see Fernando Mendoza go there. I would
I
like
think
to see it.
I think it's a decent spot for a young quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like like we're talking about the Raiders and the Giants, and Jets. I was like, oh, what do I choose? I was loving with the Cardinals, like they actually have players. Just the whole piece isn't really coming.
Kyler Murray to Vegas. Cardinals get their Fernando Mendoza. Both teams improve dramatically. Who says no?
I think Vegas fans won't do another. Vegas won't do. I think they're going to go young. I just can't imagine they'll do it again. Another. Also, Vegas is in no position to be given. I mean, I guess if it was that pick, they would have to get more. But like, they got so much work to do on the offense.
Yeah.
Okay. You have the Browns and I have the Commanders. So you go first. The Browns.
Yes, there's so much to pick here. So I went a little macro, maybe a little weird, you tell me. I just think the biggest thing they have to do in this new year is decide what is fluff inside their building and what's actually helping with football and winning football games. Because I think the one thing the Browns have had on their side is like everybody likes Kevin Stefanski, myself included, like as a person, and everybody thinks he's a talented coach. And they are also annually regarded as one of the more like progressive or analytically advanced front offices and executive teams in football. Andrew Berry installed a lot of that, obviously. That's like pretty clearly not helping them win games if there's a breakdown along the way in the decision making. Kevin Stefanski is not clearly like an edge here right now in helping them win games. And so you can build out all this programming and you can have a talented schematic coach, a talented play caller, and all of these things. But if it's not actually helping you make sound decisions that lead to winning football games, then you don't have anything. And so you have to really a lot of New Year's resolutions are also about deciding what you don't want and what you need to trim or set boundaries against in your life. Not necessarily speaking from personal experience because this is not a therapy session, but you have to sift through it.
Yourself to the Cleveland Browns, Jourdan. Please let yourself
No, God, no, definitely not. I make, I hope, better decisions in men. So you've got to sift through it and understand what will actually help win them football games. If it doesn't, get rid of it.
I don't remember who reported that. Let me look it up because I want to attribute this correctly. I saw a report today suggesting that, was it Fowler? Yeah, it was Jeremy Fowler, that Mike McDaniel would be a candidate for the Cleveland Browns job. Which seems
just following Kyle Shanahan's path, Mina.
I like Mike, and I actually have said that I think the Dolphins.
I love Mike,
but I don't like that. Seems to everything you're saying, that does not seem like the answer there. Yeah, but
no.
Organizationally, obviously, there has to be some decisions at the top, and I would say, be. Is that my kid? It is. I'm trying to be too loud. I would say also just they need receivers.
Yeah.
They need offensive linemen.
Love their draft class.
Yeah, the draft class looks great.
Yeah.
All right. Let us wrap with the Washington Commanders. This one was easy. I just wrote pass rush.
Yes.
I mean, there's other issues in the defense. But that was it was a glaring issue coming into the season. It remains a glaring issue. They went old. Yeah. Now they got to go young. Great news. You have a top draft pick. You don't need a quarterback. You've got, they probably do need to get younger receiver as well and add some players there. But that first pick, every year there's like, when we look at the first 10 in the draft and there's some teams where it's like everybody knows what position they're going to go after. I feel like it's just written in stone that the Commanders are going to take a pass rusher.
I think for all of us, New Year's resolutions includes like find ways to get younger or feel younger, right? So let's turn back the clock a little bit, Washington. Come on.
Washington, you need to take that average age down several notches on your roster. It's nice though. At least there's clarity. I'll be interested.
Yes.
You might do a new defensive coordinator too. I could see that. It feels like they just need to get younger and mix
Get
things
some
up.
ideas in there, similar to what they did on offense 2 years ago with Cliff and Anthony Lynn and all of that. Like, get some new ideas in there. And Dan Quinn has never been afraid to evolve or change. He is pretty clear about who he is, but he also listens to other people. So, I don't think that it would be a bad idea to bring in like some up and coming, like creative, shoot, if the Cardinals move on from Nick Rallis, put Nick Rallis in Washington.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
That
He's
would be
great.
Yeah, just some fresh ideas.
Yeah.
All right, well that's it. Those are all the other 500 teams. How about the freaking Saints escaping the under 500 this
I know,
year?
right? What a time to be alive.
Next in the amazing Saints. I'm not rooting for Carolina to lose, but it would be very funny if the NFC South comes down to that game.
It just would be so NFC South. I think that's what I love when the story writes itself, as a writer. I love when the story just writes itself like that. You don't even need to think of a lead. That's the lead right there.
Well, Jourdan is an excellent writer. You should check out her work. You had a great story on the Texans. You have a great story on Callie Ursay. I'm saying her name right? Callie Ursay. Right?
Carly Ursay Gordon. Yes, I went AFC recently. Yes, I went full on AFC. I was getting, I felt like I was just too in love with the NFC West.
No, I love it. Well, I assume, are you going to be at the Niners game?
I will not. I'm sad. I'm so sad. I know it's one I probably should be at, but
one more thing I want to ask you. Okay, because you're a Rams. Jourdan used to cover the Rams for those who don't know and knows the team extremely well. I am so fascinated by how they approach Week 18. So, Niners Seahawks. If the Seahawks win, then the Rams, who are coming off of a devastating loss, are pardon me, if the Seahawks win, the Rams are locked into the 5 seed. So it doesn't matter. Right? Did I get that right? Yes. If the Niners win, yes. If the Niners win, the Seahawks are locked. No, I did it all wrong. Okay.
The Rams would get the 6th seed, I think, is what yeah.
If the Niners win, the Seahawks are locked into the 5 seed and the Rams get the 6 seed.
Yeah.
If the Seahawks win, they get the 1 seed. And then then the Rams have to win to get the 5 seed. Sean McVay has said he's playing his starters Week 18, which is very interesting for those who know McVay, and Jourdan knows him better than anyone. He is extremely conservative when it comes to player health. He prioritizes that over the seeding. Okay. But Jourdan, I have to think if first of all, I think if his seeding is locked in, I'm like, all right, you're not going to really play, you're playing for like a series and then that'll be it. The more interesting outcome to me is if the Seahawks win and they have to win for the 5 seed and thus the right to face the winner of the NFC South, as opposed to probably the Eagles, right? The Eagles or the Bears? The Eagles,
Eagles or Bears. Yeah.
Like, what would you do if you were McVay?
Well, first of all, I think that he is being very clever with how he's handling this, because he was able to check multiple boxes, fill multiple goals, and all before the new year, Mina, all in one comment. Because he was able to let his players know how pissed off he was at them without telling them.
Right after the loss, and you could tell, like, answering that in that spirit. Yes,
without telling, and specifically the defense, which has struggled for the last month.
Run defense.
Yes. And so I think, first of all, he was able to accomplish that without overtly saying it, because he never does that. He never actually calls, other than the infamous Jared Goff situation, he never calls a player out or players out. Second, he's giving himself such a cushion here because half the offense is injured anyway. So all he has to do is say, well, those guys weren't on track to play anyway, and so no Devontae, no Rob, no Alaric, no Kevin Dotson
is the question.
That's and so that is the big question. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I know, is dying to get some handoffs, right? So
listen, he came in. He wants to play against Seattle and look great. I just think it's always playing with fire to try to pick your opponent, right?
Yeah.
But God, after watching the Bucs and the Panthers last week, if I'm the Rams, I sure as hell would rather play them than the Eagles defense or the Bears run game after how our run defenses looked. So I just think it's a unique situation for him.
Yeah, totally. I think it's funny because I'm like, you're not even be so for real. Like, you're not even going to do the
You're
thing
right.
that you say you're going to do. Yeah. Like,
All right.
so-
Well, something to monitor if you're a Rams fan, because you should want the 5 seed regardless of how your team approaches it. And you could argue that even the Rams, even Jimmy Garoppolo could beat the Cardinals for sure. So we shall see. That is the great Jourdan Rodrigue. Check her out on NFL Daily, which is an excellent podcast. You guys know Greg Rosenthal too, of course. Check out her amazing writing at The Athletic. Check her out on all social platforms, Jourdan Rodrigue. Thank you. As all, also check out. I'm doing my TV podcast with David Dennis Jr. We are covering Fallout episodes 2 and 3 this week on Friday, tomorrow, and we are picking our top 5 TV shows of 2025. So I narrowed it down to 5. Thank you, as always, to my friends at Omaha Productions who make the show: Kirsten Sebecki, Owen Saylor, Tucker Tashton, Jack Foster, and I'll be back with Dominique on Tuesday.
Wow!